DIR reps will actually go in and review the information very consistently. I wouldn't say daily or weekly, but very consistently compared to other agencies.
Welcome to the Prevailing Wage Report, where we promise it's certified. I'm your host, Mark Van Auken, and I'm joined by Heather Torretta, owner of Prevailing Wage Consulting. Before we dive in, if you like the podcast, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube or on your preferred podcasting platform. Heather, California is known for having some of the strictest labor laws in the country. How is the state's aggressive push for public works and green infrastructure changing the compliance landscape for contractors right now?
It is one of the most strict states. The state overall tends to be at the forefront of changes in labor reporting. And there are several other states in the country that have followed some of the examples that California has started and is currently using. And because they like to stay on the forefront as a state, it's not shocking that other states are following along to an extent. One of the biggest examples is with the renewable energy projects. They have some more legislation in place that requires even more projects to follow certain parameters, which is the same or similar parameters as the Inflation Reduction Act for the IRA tax credits. The federal government may have started with the tax credit parameters, which have been detailed out over the years better than when it started several years ago. But California picked it up pretty quickly and made it their own. And I expect other states will probably do the same.
So then, for contractors looking to bid in the Golden State, let's establish a foundation. How do California's prevailing wage requirements managed by the DIR fundamentally differ from standard federal Davis-Bacon rules?
Sure. So the requirements in that state are just a lot more. It's more rigorous, more robust. However, on the flip side of that, the state is also very much more in your face about, hey, this is a requirement. Where there are other states that also have some pretty robust reporting requirements, but they're not as out in the open in your face about it. So it's nice that the state is very clear. This is what we want. We expect this. An example would be with apprentices. That is a very key component to a lot of California reporting. Their platform, the DIR website, that's also very clear for companies that, hey, if you want this money, you have to report in this software. That's a statewide resource that has to be used. There's several others, but it's more in your face and more clear cut than, say, certain federal programs as well as other states.
Yeah, no, that doesn't. I mean, I would almost rather them be more in your face than try and have things that you're gonna have to try and figure out.
I agree. There's certain states, like even after all these years, there are certain state websites for labor reporting that just I have to stop and remember, like, oh right, it's set up like this. So like I have to kind of go and remind myself where it's at. Whereas with the state of California, it's right there. it's plastered over everything. So yeah, you have to kind of appreciate that element to it. Even if you don't like doing the reporting, you have to at least appreciate that they're all in your face about it. So it can't be as terribly surprising as other states.
Yeah, that is very true. So obviously the stakes are high before the project ever even starts. What are the most critical factors contractors need to account for when prepping a compliant bid for a California Public Works project?
Sure. So they need to make sure the project is set up in the DIR website. Depending on who you are on that project dictates what those steps mean, but the project needs to be reported in the website. So that is one. Another would be apprentice requirements. So the state has them, make sure that they're met. If you don't have a plan ahead of time, Doing so after the fact is so much harder, and you will get caught so much faster than on other projects that in the state that are not state funded. And then the last one is there's more nuances between different, say, counties, housing authorities, different areas of the state. So make sure you understand what you're doing when you bid on a public works project. And I don't just mean building it, but if they say, oh, well, it's going to require this software, it's not an either or. It could be two softwares. Or if they're asking for additional forms, well, that's, say, the housing agency's requirement, not the state. The state requirements still apply. So just make sure you understand what that means. That there's a lot of stories that that's the mistake. They don't understand. They say, "Oh, it's the state of California. I know how to use the DIR, and that's it." And that's not going to work. So
yeah, that doesn't make sense. So for everyone listening and watching, if you were enjoying the conversation and you want to stay up to date on prevailing wage compliance, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube or your podcasting platform. So Heather, California has very specific trade classifications. What are the most common and costly worker classification issues you see tripping up teams on the West Coast?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's always the laborers. That's a big one. But now with renewable energy being much more in the forefront for several years, the nuances between the trade classifications on renewable energy projects. That's also where there's the most growth in additional trade classifications being added. So what once was the standard has now shifted. So that would be the big parts. The great thing about the state of California is they make it quite easy to fall down that rabbit hole and figure out what you need. You just need to know how to interpret it and where to go.
Like I said, I still think it's nice that they're very upfront and they make it easy for you to know where you're going to mess up.
Right. And then when you do the research, there's times where you're like, did I do that right? I need to check and phone, like, let me phone a friend to make sure they also got that. But it's something that we work with regularly. We also have no problem, and we attend and communicate with the DIR routinely for clarifications and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We have a relationship as much as I guess one could, because we ask questions pretty routinely. But for a lot of contractors, that's not something they're comfortable with, or they don't know what they're trying to ask for. So it seems kind of like a silly question, or like, oh, I don't need to call. And then there's times where we'll ask a question just for clarification. And when it's explained to us of this is what they mean, we're like, oh, okay. We thought that too. It's good to ask.
Yeah, no, definitely. So now let's talk about the eCPR system. Can you walk us through the specific electronic certified payroll reporting requirements for California?
Sure. So you have to go in to their platform. What'll happen is if you have one project, you'll sign in and it'll be set up, but you can have numerous projects on this platform and get to use the same sign in. So that's the key element. It's cool because other certified payroll software systems that are not state specific started following that trend a while ago because the DIR kind of made it obvious that it was possible. Once you do that, then there's, of course, a place where you have to enter the employee's information in. You have to enter in fringes. If the project is set up properly, you will have the trade classifications you need for that project. You always want to validate that it's using the proper wage classifications and hourly rates and whatnot that go with that project. It's made up of information people entered. So you always want to validate that because people are people. They can make mistakes too. Once you do that, there is the ability to go in and fix adjustments, pay restitution, things like that, which is pretty standard for other software systems. What makes it unique compared to, say, other software providers in the prevailing wage space is it's created and maintained by the state of California. So the DIR reps will actually go in and review the information very consistently. I wouldn't say daily or weekly, but very consistently compared to other agencies. And they will go in and reject, approve, make comments, things like that on there. And so I will have to say, as far as the agencies go, they are pretty consistent. But it doesn't mean you can't have a project in the state and you're reporting consistently and not hear anything for 18 months before one of the reps does something on the project. So it's a little more than how to use the software system, but that's how most people interact with it. They get the information entered in, then they don't hear anything and they assume it's okay.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
Gotta love systems.
Yes. Yes.
So if a contractor drops the ball on these strict state rules, what does the fallout look like regarding penalties, withheld payments, or even debarment in California?
More. It's just more. This state, because I think it's a cause and effect. They're more in your face that it's required. So therefore, if you don't follow the rules, the consequences are just a lot more. There's daily fines, there's per worker fines, there's daily per worker fines. There is the option for debarment, especially if it's about enough offense. Usually it has to be compounded on numerous projects, but it has been so bad on one project that they're debarred from doing state projects. It's really the fines and penalties. The state of California is quite consistent with their fines and penalties on projects. And it could be per subcontractor or per project. It's not one or the other. And if a company is being audited on a project, that construction company could also be audited on other construction projects, especially if there's enough errors that pop up on the one, then of course they're going to check the other ones. So then what started as a one project audit has changed into a whole company-wide audit potentially for the state. That's what we're seeing a lot of. So yeah, it's the fines and penalties and then all the time that goes into fixing what's not fixed. And the state can be quite aggressive about it because they want to make sure their workers are paid properly.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. So, you know what time it is for our Would You Rather. So, Heather, would you rather always hit every green light while driving for the rest of your life or always find the perfect closest parking spot no matter where you go?
I would have to say both would be nice, but I need some red lights sometimes because I have kids. So those red lights at times are very important. But I also at times like the closer parking spots, but there's other times where I don't mind walking. I plan on having a certain treat, so I'm just going to get some extra steps in. So I would say probably the closest parking spot because I do live in a state with a lot of really cold white weather. So that would be amazing in the winter.
Yes, I understand this very well.
Yes, it's such a mess at times. So I guess I would go with that one.
I agree with you. I think I would take that one as well. Just because, sometimes you go to the grocery store, it's a Sunday afternoon and you're trying to, you pull in, you're like, well, I guess I'm going to have to walk half a mile down to get through the parking lot just to get to a cart and then into the store.
Yes. There was when I was at college, there was a point where I thought, why did I even drive? Because the parking spot was down the block and I still had to walk the rest of the way. So I was like, well, that was not smart. And then I quit walking, or I quit driving there and just started walking instead. Yeah, I've had that thought too. But in the winter, it's just so much further in the snow.
It feels so much worse. You're just trudging through. I definitely agree with you there.
Yes, and we
So,
get this weird mix where I thought like snowshoes, but because of the weird mix, it almost wouldn't work, which is weird for so I'm like,
oh,
ah. So yes, closest park. More I think about it, closest parking spot.
yeah, definitely. So, to wrap up, we want to help our listeners avoid those massive penalties. So, as a final piece of advice, what is the absolute most important compliance step that a contractor must take before putting boots on the ground in California?
I would say that the most important step would be making sure that your team understands the labor reporting requirements. The state of California is the most consistent state that requires more than one labor reporting software on projects. It's all about where the money's coming from. So, understanding that and then making sure those systems are set up so that way they can report when it's ready. It feels terrible when you find out it's not set up and you're rushing to get paid. It never feels good, nothing works well, you don't hit all the green lights, you hit all the red lights. So I would say that would be the biggest one. The reporting is the reporting. The softwares are what'll stop you cold if you don't have it.
No, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so thank you, Heather, so much for joining me today. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us. If you like the podcast, again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube or your podcasting platform. And if you're active in this space and want to surround yourself with people who actually get it, head over to our website to join our member portal, an exclusive community for professionals navigating these exact same waters. Thank you. Have a great day.